One. Welcome back to another special interview on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. Now, full disclosure, a good friend of mine, Alex Gridley, who used to be a part of Jurassic Pro Wrestling over here in the UK, was a massive fan of Deuce, Domino, and Cherry. Now, coincidentally, my guest at this time is one third of that pairing. And when he knew that I had Cherry on the show, he couldn't contain the excitement. If you see it on X, he responded. But anyway, it's Cherry from Deuce and Domino. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you? Oh, that's so exciting to hear.
Yeah,
So
he was like Deuce and Domino were his favorite tag team ever. He used to be a part of a tag team. Alex was a part of a tag team over here in
uh,
the UK. So it was, yeah, very interesting.
oh,
Thanks for
yay.
joining us, Cherry. It's really a pleasure to talk to you
Thank you.
today. Let's just go right back because look, Deuce and Domino Cherry it was quite a unique tag team. It gave me like Grease vibes in when it first came, from that. But obviously, you were kind of a team down in OVW for a bit before you got that call up. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, well, I should give the credit to Deuce and Domino. They initially started the greasers gimmick, and Domino thought of adding a girl to the mix on roller skates. So they had initially started it and then asked me to kind of join and come up with who this cherry girl was going to be. So yeah, we started in OVW together.
Oh, interesting. Because obviously, I think it was Deuce that was the son of Jimmy Snooker,
Yes.
if I'm right in saying. Was that? Did you get much advice from Jimmy at that point, or was Deuce just allowed to really sort of do his own thing back then?
I actually knew Jimmy Jr. for since I started in wrestling. We started in the same wrestling school in New Jersey about the same time frame. So we had been on the independents and we didn't know each other for a bit. And his dad was always around, and he was very close with his dad. So his dad would come down and visit him and the show and did a little bit of a spot on the show as well. So yeah, he was always great for advice and input. So yeah, his dad was has a very special place in our heart for that gimmick.
Brilliant. That's great. And obviously, like I said, the call up did eventually happen. What was it like? What was the differences between like, I mean, imagine they would have been quite big from OVW to SmackDown because you go from an OVW, like it's basically NXT nowadays, that's what they call it. And then it's like this, okay, it's not necessarily live. I think SmackDown was always pre-recorded, if my memory serves me right. It used to be recording on a
Yeah.
Tuesday, air on a Friday over here in the UK anyway. What was that? Was there major differences coming up from OVW to the main roster?
From a standpoint of how the TV structured, I mean, we had a lot more creative control as talent in OVW with Al, and just all of us had inputs in creating the story there, whereas there's the bigger machine. So put your input in, but they have kind of an agenda for you. So you don't really, yes, you can contribute and have a say in it, but overall it's what they want and what they say and how you go about it. So that was the transition, as whereas like me, Deuce, and Domino would all have this mindset and be able to execute it the way we saw the vision, whereas you go up there and you're kind of reliant on what they want from you.
Yeah, it must have been a big sort of contrast in changes. How did 'cause if I remember rightly, and forgive me, come out, was it a car that you guys used to come out in?
Yes, that was so exciting, because initially they had ramps, which I was a little nervous about. But they had cars every week, every time. So wherever we were, they would get a local car. So that was really exciting. Took the fear away from me, and it also made it look a lot better for our entrance. So yeah, and then they would let me take a photo shoot with it every week. So I got a little different photo shoots kind of going on, which was great. Took advantage of the opportunity.
Fantastic. That was really good. And it wasn't too long before that moment happened with Deuce and Domino and yourselves won the tag team championships. Do you remember, was you in the room when you got told? How was it kind of given to you and presented to you?
Um, from what I remember, it was just more of we knew the storyline was going that route, and we were supposed to win them on a SmackDown.
Mhm.
Um, so it was just kind of it was in talks. It wasn't like a last minute thing. It was if that's what you're asking. So we knew that that was going to happen to further our storyline with Paul London and Brian Kendrick. It was just a matter of were they going to take advantage of it on a pay per view? Were they going to take advantage of a SmackDown? So we knew that was eventually coming sooner than later, which was nice.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting one because I think if memory serves me rightly, I think I definitely met you, Deuce and Domino over here in the UK. You done an autograph signing. I'm just trying to remember where it was. It was myself and actually my mum come along with me to a show
Oh, fun.
on that one. I can't remember where it was though. Um, I want to say like Newcastle, England, or somewhere along. It was definitely up that way. But it was yeah, it was definitely a show we met you both. It may have been before. No, it was definitely up Newcastle way. But yeah, I remember meeting you both. I've still got the autograph upstairs with my autograph room. I should have brung it down for this actually because it was yeah, it was. I just remember it very very well. It was a great. You guys were nice considering you guys played heels on telly. You were nice,
Yeah, that's
nice
good.
people.
Yeah, we always did that European tour in April-ish. It was
Yes.
like 2.5 week time frame that we spent over there. So that was always fun.
Yeah, because it was generally after WrestleMania, wasn't it? That tour was done.
Yes.
It
Yeah,
wasn't
typically.
long. Yeah, this year they done it prior to WrestleMania. When you was there, how relentless was that? Because the traveling has always been a thing. We've interviewed quite a lot of people on here, and some people will say it was actually good to travel a lot because I asked a question to Rob Van Dam, for example, and I said like, would the wrestlers have benefited from like a couple of week off season like after WrestleMania? You do your Raw after
Yeah.
WrestleMania, which is the big one. And then I said, would it be beneficial if you had a couple of weeks off just because you're traveling all the year? And he actually said it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like some wrestlers would love it, but your body gets used to A, the punishment it takes, and B, the schedule. So for taking that time away may have actually hindered you. How would you would have reacted to it?
It was definitely an adjustment, especially being away that long for me, getting used to that kind of overseas. I mean, the UK tour was always the 2.5 weeks. So I struggled with adjusting to the time zone a lot. I remember we did a Singapore, Bangkok, Australia loop right in a row. And because I struggled on the European tour to get on that schedule, um, I was gonna try to adjust my body to being in those three countries, and I stayed up. So we got to, I think it was Singapore first. Everybody hits the gym because you're on the flight and you just want to kind of get the blood flowing again. So we all went to the gym, and then I ended up staying up watching movies, and so I did that. And shamingly enough, I ended up crashing out on the tour bus, and I guess they were gonna mess with me, and Chava was like, leave her alone, she hasn't slept, and kind of made a joke of it. And then I woke up and nobody was on the tour bus, and I was like, oh my God. Like, we made it to the arena or stadium where we were, but just kind of me wanting to force myself to get on that time zone because the struggle was just so tough. I was like, I'm gonna try something different this tour. So that was an adjustment. But I think, like RBD's saying, is you tend to get used to it over time. So, but I was still very new to that kind of lifestyle. So I was just trying to find something that would that would work. So yeah. And then when you're overseas, you're on, like, you're all in buses, and so you're kind of being bussed around. Whereas in the States, you're just kind of, after the show, you could be on your own and do your thing. So um I mean, I like that. Obviously, I don't know anything about traveling in the UK, so having them take control of that is better. So it's definitely has its yeah, positive and negatives.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you wouldn't want to be traveling too much around the UK. Although the States is kind of a big, country. So I know. I think the furthest probably here would be the UK to Scotland way. That would be a kind of London to Scotland would be a hell of a journey. It wouldn't be as long as I've seen some wrestlers. We spoke to Demolition, the tag team, and they were like traveling 14 hours to go from one, state to another up across the US. So
Yeah,
wouldn't be as bad as that. But it,
yeah. Those drives were brutal sometimes. So from being in the States wise, because after you finish a show, you're at the arena all day, and then now you have to drive 4 or 5 hours depending. So you split that up. Yeah. So
yeah,
travel.
you definitely have to stop for food as well, right? After that show, because you know that you're hungry.
Yeah, or plan ahead. For sure.
I think meal prep's what it's called nowadays, isn't it? You do some
Yeah.
meal prep or something like that. Look, this show we're big advocates of women's wrestling over here in the UK. We've got a championship that is defended over here as well. But back in the times that you were in the WWE, times were tough for the women in there. I mean, I spoke to a few of the women that was around back then, and it was like you had to scratch and claw for a 90-second promo on TV, and a lot of it back then was. It was a summer, so they'd do a swimsuit contest, or it was trick or treat thing, and someone would end up getting squashed with a pie, or something along those lines. Now, nowadays, you'd get nothing like that. Do you feel like in a way, you played your part in that? They call it the women's revolution. It started way before then, when it definitely should have been the equality should have been there way before then. But you played your part in that. Do you kind of feel great about that you paved the way for the women to get these opportunities that they deserved, and really you guys should have got back then?
And that's a great question. I mean, I don't see it as me paving the way. I think Cherry wasn't that fantastic wrestler, that at least that's the organicness of the character that I wanted to evolve.
Hmm.
So very different back then. And we did have a lot of talented women on our roster. So I'm glad to see that times have changed. When I got there, it was a lot less of the bikini contests. I was
Yeah.
in one, but it had definitely transitioned a lot more to less and a little bit more wrestling. So we were on our way, which is great. And to now see what it is today, it's like I watch a lot more. I fast forward through the guys a lot more than and just girls, because the women today are just amazing and incredible, and the things that they're doing are really amazing. And to see that evolve, and to the point where we're main eventing Raw, WrestleMania, like it's a bigger storyline, it's a bigger, attraction, which we're glad to have been able to do. And there's a lot more girls that can do it and have been doing it than when I was there. So I always say, there's so many people on, that are signed and are talented. They really need to do like a women's only show. Like I have a Raw, SmackDown, and then a women's only show, because you could still rotate, with the Intercontinental, all of these titles that they have now, the tag titles, and you could still have your champs, but you have so many women now that are so talented. Like, why have them now? It is fighting for that 20-minute match that you can have now, but there's so much less time for the women. Let's do a show like that Evolution pay-per-view that we did was that the women did was fantastic. So hopefully, I mean, that would be the next accomplishment, right? Is to get a show just for the women. So, because there's so much time and talent to be able to put out there. So that's
Yeah,
my
no,
wish.
there absolutely is, and there's also so many platforms now, isn't there? Like that
Yeah.
they really could use. But speaking of Evolution, apparently that is coming back, a number two Evolution. It hasn't been officially announced yet, but you know,
Fingers crossed, right? That's all we can hope for.
yeah, no, definitely. No, well, it shouldn't even, they should, as you say, weekly shows should easily happen in the W. I don't see any reason
Right.
why it can't. As you said, there's plenty of talented women in the WWE, or in any company really. There's so
Yeah.
many. We was looking at them the other day. We were like, wow, because we're fortunate here to be TNA, as we're TNA UK media over here, so we get some of their stars on the show, and it's just like when you looked at that roster, you look at the WWE's, AWs, even the NWA, because we're seeing lots of crossovers now as well. TNA, WWE crossing over, WWE Natalia's crossing over into the NWA. I know you had a little brief match with Natalia as well. Is she someone that just goes under the radar, Natalia, because she is so good, but like perhaps doesn't quite get those maybe championship opportunities or reigns that she should get? Does she go a little bit underappreciated for how good that she is?
I think so, for sure. I mean, if anybody saw the blood sport that she did
Yeah.
recently for GCW, it was, I mean, if you ever doubted her talent, just watch that match. She is amazing. It is really, I mean, truly in her blood. It's not just because she comes from the Hart family. She just works out her and TJ have a ring on Wednesdays when they're home,
Yeah.
and try, or when their schedules permit. She really just has a mind for it and is very, very talented. And it really does sting to see that, she has so much more to offer, and rotate her more into the mix. I think that's just where they get you sign all these amazing women, but then you only have such a little small spot to put them in. It's like you need a return on your investment. And, being able to utilize Natty and her skills in so many different facets, you could really get a lot more out of her and entertain the crowd. So, I think they appreciate her for re-signing her again because there
Mm.
is value, but they're wasting, I just feel like there's so much more she has to give. And she's very big on storyline. It has to mean something. Like don't
Yeah.
throw it together, which just shows the you know the heart and soul that she has in it. She wants to make sure that it is entertaining and there's a reason for it and there's a story behind it. So yeah, she's extremely talented, more than people even know. And I'm not just saying that because I'm one of her best friends and I love her to death, but just to see. And there's a lot of women out there that are very talented, and it's the part that kind of wishes for my women's show because there's so much more to entertain with.
I think they definitely have to do it. I personally thought she was going to be a shoe-in for the Intercontinental Championship, the women's one when they created it. I thought that the story was kind of already written, was it, Brett? And you look at the lineage that was there before, and it seemed just like the obvious thing to do. And it would have been, nothing against Lyra Valkyria or anything like that, or Chelsea Green for the United States for that matter. But I just thought like when you put it on, if you're going to put it on somebody with that little bit with that bit of star power and somebody that could perhaps elevate not only the championship but the people in the championship or in that hunt, she's the shoe in, right?
For the first one that they've
Mm.
had. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I thought that was going to be the case, and it was disappointing. But same with Lyra. She's great. She's a good champion. But like you're saying, just coming from the lineage of the history of an intercontinental title and her family, and just kind of, it would have been a good start to creating that title run.
She could, in a couple of weeks' time, walk out with one of the most prestigious championships in wrestling, that being the NWA Women's World Championship, the Burke. I don't know, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of the WWE NWA partnership. But if anyone's going to A, take that title off a very talented young lady in Kenzie Page, but B, it's never been done before. Ric Flair kind of had the real world championship and all of that sort of stuff. It would be fitting for Natty to go to the NWA and claim arguably the most prestigious title in women's wrestling.
Oh, I can't disagree more. I th more. I agree more. I think that's a great. We have the same vision. No, I think that would be great, and I love seeing her getting these opportunities. If they're, she's not in a main storyline right now,
Hmm.
and I know Mania has a lot going on. That's her. She's a go-getter. She invests in herself, and that's just kind of her love and drive for it. She wants to do more things, and being able to step out and do things that others haven't done and be the first is really just kind of who she is. So she's always striving for more, wants to give more, and has more to give. So I agree.
Yeah, let's see what she does. Hopefully that's the outcome. Although I'm quite the Page sisters have been on here, and me saying that may irate them a little bit. But going back to yourself, what was WrestleMania season like for you? Because we've seen it now, and obviously, look, it's 2 nights now. They've done a 3 week tour of Europe before. Normally, that's after. Is it just like a hellacious week of activities in the WWE?
Yes, yes. It's, you just plan on being in the area for just activities and signings and interviews and meet and greets and stuff like that, which is great for the fans. I mean, they didn't have that. When I was growing up, it was just WrestleMania was exciting, but now when they do this interactive and the Super Show and the store and all of this stuff, it's like it's really fun for the fans. I mean, people, as anybody knows, comes across the world because now they've created all these activities and things that people can do because it is a Super Bowl. It is just exciting, and it's always worth it. So that's the fun part of WrestleMania is you're very, very busy, very, very busy. And I wasn't even one of the main people. So those guys are just, media in the morning, interviews, meet and greet. Like it's just a constant, busy, busy week. So, but overall it's fun. I mean, that's what the fans want to see. They want to just not just see the show, which we know is going to be spectacular, but to be able to get close enough. And to have it 2 nights, I mean, that's even more fun, you
Y-
know?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've had luxury of traveling to 5 WrestleManias, I think. Yeah, five, 21, 25, 26, 27, 28. And they were great events and everything. And the 2 night thing is interesting. I'm still getting used to it. I think it's great in many ways because it gets more people on the card in a sense. I'm still getting used to it. Now the SummerSlam's going 2 nights, and I'm thinking, how long before the Royal Rumble goes 2 nights? And then, but they could do something. You kind of alluded to it when you're talking about the women's only weekly show. Well, why not have one of these nights as a women's night and then one as the men's?
I'm for it. I'm definitely for it. There was a lot of storylines going on. I mean, Chelsea wasn't on Mania, and I'm a big fan of Chelsea.
Oh yeah.
So I think she's very entertaining and very good. And, why not do that too? And I get it. It's great because they can, like you said, give more time to the wrestlers to entertain, but also gives the audience a break, and to be able to come back for a second day. So I've met a lot of fans that are, there both nights and are very religious and loyal and going to all of these. So, it's good to see it evolve.
Yeah, no, it certainly is, and I think it would definitely work for sure especially the 2 night, especially if done to the women's night and the men's night. I think that would be tremendous. But did you have a favorite event, like a favorite pay-per-view, either growing up or when you was in the WWE, that every time you looked at, you was like, where are we going for it? Where is it, kind of thing?
Mania and Rumble.
Yeah.
Rumble's always fun because you hope to see some like fun, nostalgic, surprise. But you always know that those are the big ones that are going to have something. And I mean, it's like the Raw, like you said, after Mania, it's like always fun to see. Sorry, my dogs are fighting.
That's all right.
They're not fighting, they're playing. But so the Raw after Mania, I mean, what was Raw and SmackDown to see like some of the returns of these people and changes of titles and stuff like that? Like, how exciting. That's now becoming something I really look forward to, is those shows after WrestleMania, because there's always a new change in direction. You worked hard all year, you had this spectacular event, and now let's move forward. Let's look at some other opportunities. So that's great.
Yeah, it is. It's I mean, the Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania, you alluded to there, we've had returns, title changes, some matches that perhaps arguably could have been on WrestleMania, weren't on WrestleMania, and they,
Ladder match. Oh my word.
yeah,
With the
it was the
oh
TLC match this week was just incredible, absolutely incredible. But you mentioned there Royal Rumble, when you talk about surprise returns, I mean, Cherry, surely you're going to be doing a Royal Rumble return soon, right?
cross our fingers up, right? That would be amazing. That would be amazing to do that, and to see some of my friends be able to go back, like Victoria and, that stuff. I think now, because they do have NXT and all of this talent, with like TNA, they're pulling from that roster rather than bringing back any nostalgia people. So I hope to, that would be really exciting to be in front of the crowd like that again. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. I'm a positive thinking person. So I'm, in a great place in my life where I think more positively. So you put that positivity out there, hopefully it comes back.
If you're watching Hunter, you've just been told right there that Cherry wants to return. And listen, if you're doing an Evolution 2,
Oh, there you go.
there's another opportunity for an appearance. You touched on the TNA thing, and I mentioned we're very fortunate to be TNA over here. I mean, that was something that I don't think, anyone would have ever predicted, a WWE be in partnership with anyone. They bought out Triple R as well in Mexico, which is going to add a whole new, we don't even know the ins and outs of that yet. But did you ever think that, two things really, did you ever think that WWE would ever partner with anyone? B, a WWE without a McMahon in charge of things is weird.
Yeah. I mean, it's just amazing to see with this new transition and TKO and all that stuff, where it's going, to see all of this. I mean, I was shocked by the Mexico acquisition, which is great, so you think, oh my gosh, we're going to be, we're going to join teams with this TKO and it's going to be good. But to see really their vision for WWE and all the other companies involved, it's like, wow, this is going a lot. They have a completely different vision going forward than I even thought. Wouldn't have never even thought that would be the case. So it's nice to see that transition for them to, have this partnership with TNA and all of this. Sky's the limit. I mean, where are we going? I mean, you also have to think, you do still need competition. Like, does that kind of break up the point of good competition, so I'm excited to see kind of where that goes. And it is hard to, we all grew up on McMahon, I was
Mm.
just, even the thought of them, like why we always just know Vince McMahon. That's like the name of wrestling, so
Yeah.
it's hard to think of it without, but we're, Hunter's doing great. The product's great. They've been doing good things. So I mean, maybe it was just kind of that time where you do evolve a little bit. So I think he'll always be synonymous with the business, but sometimes moving on and change is better.
Yeah.
So it's weird, but there's so many years that he's been involved that he'll always be part of that. You just think about that. So
Yeah, you can't take it out of wrestling, that's for sure. Just a final question before we wrap up, Cherry. We've seen that this is kind of another one that I think for maybe an older guy like myself, when I saw the video of it and I saw the trailer, I wasn't quite sure how to feel about it. And it was the Netflix documentary of WWE going behind the curtain and taking you into the writers' room
oh,
backstage.
that's
I
gonna
was
be,
kind of sitting there going, look, I'm a massive wrestling fan. I love wrestling, but there is just things that I don't want to know, if that makes sense.
yeah,
I don't go like I'll do a social media blackout on a day of a pay-per-view because I don't want to know who's in the, who do that sort of stuff.
yeah,
I'm
good
just
point.
not sure how I feel about them doing that. And I wanted to sort of understand from your opinion, how do you feel? Because you were a wrestler at the time. If they said to you, oh, we're filming this is all going to happen, is it just sometimes a little bit of a too much of an invasion of what goes on? Or do you think that's just the world that we live in now?
I guess I'm kind of old school in that sense too. It's like we've already understood the reality behind the business, whereas growing up in the territories and stuff, like you didn't know, and to now show the writer side of it. Yeah, I mean, it's that evolving with the TKO and different visions and shows and stuff. Excuse me. To then expose that too. I mean, it's just you go with the change, right? I mean, I'm sure they won't show enough that will expose like what they have in mind for storylines, maybe just kind of like the writing process. I don't know. It would be interesting. I think you're right. I mean, do we want to know that much?
Some probably
It's
do.
like, what else are we gonna know after that? It's like we'll have to see. Well, I mean, it definitely seemed interesting.
It
So,
was. I mean, I think someone screenshotted as you know what it's like, and something like this comes out, and people that are always trying to look at it. Someone screenshotted the whiteboard that was behind the writers, and it had WrestleMania pitches for matches, and it had a list of like the matches kind of that people were pitching to the. I don't know if we're going to see that kind of bit where someone's pitching a match and stuff, but I don't know. I'm just I don't know. Maybe I'm just an old fool, and I just prefer stuff that I just don't want to know and just
yeah,
leave it there. Leave it there.
I
But
think it's a lot easier nowadays without Vince there because Vince was big. I mean, Vince rewrote shows minutes before air. I mean, it was just a little chaotic from that standpoint. It sounds like it's a lot more structured for them to do a show like this. Or is this show going to be more scripted where it makes more sense? I don't know. It's definitely an interesting concept for sure.
I might watch an episode. I'm sure it's going to be more than one dot. I'm sure it's going to be like I like to think it's going to be a series, or maybe I'll start watching it and I'll see how that process is, and we'll
Yeah.
get there. But Cherry, look, it's
But
been a whirlwind. Sorry, it's been a whirlwind half an hour. But before we come to an end, look, have you got any sort of wrestling appearances? What's going on in your world now?
yes, I will. I'm actually going to be in Massachusetts June 13th for an appearance. And then in July, I'm going to be doing an appearance for the Wrestling Guy store and an associate of his in Phoenix. I think it's July 12th and 13th. I'll be at the Wrestling Guy store in LA. So those are two kind of coming up. I do a Whatnot auction. If anybody knows what that is, Whatnot is an app where it's a live auction. So every month I do an auction where I sell certain items, whether it's 8x10s, dolls, ring war gear, trading cards, things like that. So I have one coming up May 13th at 5:30 Eastern time. You just have to download the Whatnot app. So it's whatnot.com/user/DDC check. So DDCCHICK. So that's really fun because I get a lot of fans and stuff like there interacting, and you could buy stuff directly from me. So I sign it and show it. So that's more interactive. And then I'm on Instagram as DDC Chick as well, and on Twitter as former Diva Cherry. I don't have a Facebook, so the ones out there of me are not me. So yeah, so those few appearances, and then just kind of social media stuff.
There you go, everybody. This has been a whirlwind half. And a big shout out to Podstars, by the way, for
Yeah.
making this happen as well. If you want to book Cherry for your for a podcast just like this or an interview, go to podstars.net. She is on there. She's been a wonderful guest. Other wrestlers include, I think they still got Jake Roberts on there as well. I think there's a
Ooh.
couple of other wrestlers. Buff Bagwell was a great one for us with the Podstars team. Go and hit up, go and book Cherry for your podcast, everybody. It's been wonderful, Cherry, for the half an hour talking to you. Look, I wish you well. I hope to see you back in the WWE of a special appearance of a kind in the future.
That's very sweet. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cherry. Guys, this has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with the wonderful Cherry. I have been your host, Adam Cousins, and I'll catch you on the next show on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. But until then, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and goodbye.